Hare Krishna. Ronnie, Prabhu, please call. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna Mataji. Danuttanam. All glories to Prabhupada. Hare Krishna Mataji. I can't hear you, Mataji. Yes, Mataji. You have to unmute, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Mataji, you have to unmute. Yes, Mataji. We can't hear you. On the left-hand side, Mataji, there'll be a button.
Got it.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Is that all right?
Yes, Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to Prabhupada. Yes.
So what was the kirtan that I was just seeing?
Yes, Mataji. Before the class, Mataji, we usually run a kirtan.
That's nice.
That's what we do, Mataji.
Where was Bibi Govinda Maharaj?
We don't know, Mataji. Where was it? It's just a recorded kirtan, Mataji.
Oh, okay.
We just play recorded kirtans of.
How many people are on this Zoom?
Mataji, currently we have, including us, we have 8, but more will join in short time, Mataji.
Okay, fine.
But it is mostly from our Bhakti Vriksha group, so it won't be a very large group. So we just wanted it to be a sweet and small katha with a smaller group, Mataji.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Tomorrow, I have to give class on a very important sloka in Srimad Bhagavatam, the Haridasa Varya sloka from Venu Gita. So I've been studying all week that sloka. So I'm going to do a practice class tonight.
Wonderful.
But I'll do the parts that are related to Srila Prabhupada, in the sense that it's not things that I'm going to mention tomorrow in the class. So just let me know when to start talking. That's all.
Yes, Mataji. And these classes, Mataji, the Lilamrit classes you are taking, they are weekly classes? They are.
Yes, every Sunday. We started about 6 weeks ago, and I gave the first one as an introduction because I wanted to go through the preface and the foreword and the introduction. And then I thought that let other devotees have a chance to speak about Prabhupada. But then Satsvarup Maharaj wrote to me, and he said that he wanted me to give the classes because I researched everything very deeply, and the other devotees just talk about their pastimes with Prabhupada. And he wanted to hear what my research is about Prabhupada Lilamrita. So for the last 3 or 4 weeks, I've been giving the classes. And then last week, because all the Matajis are in there who make garlands, there are about 50 Matajis. And not all of them speak English. So they asked me to give it in Hindi, which was horrifying for me because my Hindi is so bad. But I tried to do it yesterday. I gave both classes, English and Hindi. And by the end of the English class, I was ready to collapse. So I'm not going to do that again. But at least I tried. So I'll just go back to only giving the English classes from next week.
Okay, Mataji. They were very nice, Mataji.
Thank you. Each time Satsvarup Maharaj writes to me and we talk about details, because he can't walk anymore. He's locked up in his sanctuary, Viraha Bhavan in New York. So these lectures they're very nice for him because it's bringing his books back to life. So.
Yes, Mataji. Rather, okay. I will say you're bringing that Prabhupada Lilamrit to life, Mataji. So much research I'm sure you are doing for those classes. It is simply amazing, Mataji, to hear.
Well, a lot of it was done by Gargamuni Prabhu, because he and Brahmananda, they're so attached to Srila Prabhupada. They went through all of Prabhupada's writings and what he, especially his room conversations, everything he said about his childhood. And he gave that file to me. It's like 100 pages. So I take a lot of it out of that. So I have to give credit to Gargamuni, definitely.
Oh,
It's
I
not
thought,
that I did.
I thought, Mataji, you are researching for the Veda base and maybe Shuta Kirti Prabhu, Upendra Prabhu.
Oh, I do, but 50% is Gargamuni's research.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
He should get the credit.
Yes,
That's all.
Mataji. Yes, Mataji. He's also been very, I follow him in the Facebook. He puts many gems, Mataji, every day.
Oh yeah, he's back on Facebook now?
Yes, Mataji, he's there.
Okay.
And every day he's posting such wonderful
Oh,
gems.
that's nice.
Yes.
Under what name does he post now?
His name and his karmic name also, both they're combined, I think, Mataji.
Gary Shroff?
Yes, Mataji. Yes, Mataji.
All right, I'm just going to get the verse because this verse is so important. It was spoken by Srimati Radharani, and this I've been researching for over a week now. I have 22 pages of notes, and I don't use my notes when I give classes, so I have to memorize everything. So the verse is, I'll read the translation.
Mataji, 1 second. The devotees have come. Let me officially begin the class, Mataji.
Okay, fine.
1 minute I'll take, Mataji, because some would not even know you. Hare Krishna and Pranam, dear devotees. So welcome to this special session by Her Grace Daivi Shakti Mataji that we're going to hear from her Prabhupada Katha. Many of you know Mataji, but some of you are new. So I will just give a brief introduction of Mataji, this very brief introduction, that Mataji got initiated on 1st August 1970 by Prabhupada, and it happened via letter when Prabhupada he was traveling to Tokyo, I think, when Prabhupada sent a letter to Mataji. And Mataji had a religious background from the beginning, and she wanted to study the oldest of the scriptures. And she found that the best university for this is University of Chicago, and Mataji got admission there. And there in the library she found Bhagavad Gita, yes. And she read the whole Bhagavad Gita. And then Mataji decided, on that very day, Mataji decided that rather than to waste 4 years in the university, that to find somebody who's living the life of Bhagavad Gita, or who's teaching Bhagavad Gita, or the yoga mentioned there. And then she left, and then she traveled, and she met devotees, and finally they came near to her house, her hometown in Philadelphia. I don't know, Mataji, which was your hometown?
Philadelphia
only. Okay.
Yes.
And they started a temple, and Mataji joined. I think initially there were only 4 devotees, Mataji mentioned, and then she went on a fast track, to get initiated and everything so fast. And she has been distributing Prabhupada books for last 50 years. Those of us who are regular to Vrindavan Dham or been there, we would have seen in the Prabhupada bookshop, Mataji is regular, and she's a very humble and wonderful devotee. So we are very grateful. She agreed. Her health was not well, but I was pursuing her for last many months. So finally she relented. And I will also request everybody to please hear those Prabhupada Lilamrit classes. We will send the link in our groups also. They are amazing lectures, and so much hard work Mataji has done to research. And also, like she was saying, that Satswarup Maharaj, who compiled Lilamrit, he himself is hearing and relishing those classes. And I was hearing the class also. Mataji shared how Maharaj said that this is how Lilamrit should be read. So it is another Bhagavatam for us. And Mataji has also been distributing books to all the colleges and schools, throughout. So we are very, very fortunate to hear from her. So we heartily welcome Mataji by loudly chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna
Hare
Krishna,
Hare,
Hare
Hare Ram, Hare Ram,
Ram,
Ram Ram.
Ram.
Yes.
I'd like to add one little note.
Yes,
that Srila Prabhupada, in 1974, he asked me to put his books in all the schools and libraries in India. Who knows how many schools and libraries there are in India? It's more than one lifetime of a job. And we tried, first we traveled all over India. That was somewhat successful. But we were criticized that, how can you carry books on your head all over India? It was very difficult, actually. Then we tried by mailing thousands upon thousands of letters to all the schools' names that we could find. That was somewhat successful. And now we have a new approach, and that's because the devotee who was the architect for our Vrindavan temple, his name was Surabi Abhipalantan Swami. He came here to leave his body in 2015. He had cancer. And he wanted to make his will something to Vrindavan. So we now have, so far they've sent enough. Anyway, we've done about 300 sets of Srimad Bhagavatams. And if you all want to make try within your area, the way we do it is, the books are sponsored. We give them to you for free, full sets of Srimad Bhagavatam. And you just go to the schools, the colleges, and you speak to either the librarian or the principal, and you tell them we want to donate this set of Srimad Bhagavatams. They just have to fill in a certificate saying that the name of their school, and give their stamp. And then we have the books in the libraries. And then after we do that, because we've given them a donation, we ask if we can have a program in the college for the students. And sometimes we're making devotees that way. We're having regular programs. So we just sent 50 sets to Coimbatore. And then before that, we sent 68 sets to Trivandrum. And anyone who is willing to just simply go and give free sets of Srimad Bhagavatams, we will sponsor the sets for you. So that's up to you, Giriraj Prabhu.
Haribol, yes.
If you'd like
So
to
wonderful.
organize. Yeah, you have a lot of hi-fi schools in the Gurgaon area, right?
Yes, Mataji. Yes, Mataji. We will try, Mataji.
Okay.
We will try, Mataji.
If anyone is connected with any university, any college, any inter-college even, we're happy to give the sets of books for you. Okay?
Okay, Mataji.
Just let me know and somebody can come and pick them up. Okay?
Yes, Mataji. We will try, Mataji. At least this way we can be of some drop of service in your service to Srila Prabhupada.
Direct service to Srila Prabhupada. It was an instruction that he directly gave us. And we have a lot of schools to cover.
Yes, Mataji.
So tomorrow, because for the last so many years since Srila Prabhupada left us, he entered Samadhi in 1977. Every time we go through the Srimad Bhagavatam from first canto to 10th canto, when we reach 10th canto part 13, we stop in our Srimad Bhagavatam classes and we go back to first canto again. So this year, we didn't stop. We went on to 10th canto, chapter 14. And now we're up to 10th canto, chapter 21, which is the Venu Gita. So Venu Gita is very beautiful. The gopis haven't yet had direct association with Krishna. They've just heard about him. They've seen him. They're attracted to him. They're attracted especially to his flute playing. And tomorrow, we're going to do a very important sloka, and I'm going to read you the translation of it. Of all the devotees, this Govardhan hill is the best. Oh, my friends, this hill supplies Krishna and Balaram, along with their calves and cows and cowherd friends, with all kinds of necessities. Water for drinking, very soft grass, caves, fruits, flowers, and vegetables. In this way, the hill offers respects to the Lord. Being touched by the lotus feet of Krishna and Balaram, Govardhan Hill appears very jubilant. So because Giriraj Prabhu asked me to speak on Prabhupada Katha, I wanted to combine the two things, because just before Srila Prabhupada entered Samadhi, he got a very strong desire. Prabhupada did not like lying in his bed at all. He felt that he was rotting here in Vrindavan. And even in August of 1977, although he couldn't walk, although he hadn't eaten for months, he decided he was going to make a world tour again. And possibly some of you know about when he got as far as London, and all the devotees in Europe came to see him, and then he fell ill again in London. In the middle of the night, he told his servants, I have to go back to Vrindavan. Time has come now. But he didn't come back to Vrindavan. He went to Bombay because Surabi Swami was there making the temple, the Radha Bihari temple in Juhu. And Prabhupada had made a promise to Radha Rasa Bihari. Giriraj Swami has just recently written that book, I'll Build You a Temple, that he promised Radha Rasa Bihari that he would build them a beautiful temple. And wherever Prabhupada went, he carried a picture of Radha Rasa Bihari to remind them that yes, he was building that temple. So before he came for the last time to leave this world in Vrindavan, he went to Bombay. And his quarters weren't ready. He still insisted in staying in them. The temple wasn't ready. And Surabi Swami said, he explained to Prabhupada, because Surabi was very practical. He said, we won't be able to get the temple ready until January. And at that time it was September. Prabhupada didn't expect that he would last that long. So he came here to Vrindavan. And when he reached here, he prepared. He had the devotees bring salt. He told them where his samadhi was going to be. Everything was, he was just waiting for the time when Krishna would take him. And the devotees were begging him, all the GBC came, please don't leave, we need you, you haven't finished Srimad Bhagavatam, we're just little children, we'll be like orphans. So Prabhupada decided to stay. And when he decided, he said, yes, he would stay. Then he decided, I want to go on Govardhan Parikrama. He said, if I live or if I die, if I'm at Govardhan, then it's the perfect place. I can just be under a tree. In the daytime, we can move around on a bullock cart. And at night, we just sleep under a tree and we picnic in the grass. So even when Srila Prabhupada was traveling to America on the Jaladut, just before he reached the port of Boston, he wrote a beautiful poem in Bengali where he was remembering and longing that Krishna, when will I be able to frolic with you again, herding in the pasturing grounds, the cows, sharing our lunch with each other. So these are all Govardhan Leelas that Prabhupada was remembering. And he was yearning to return to Krishna in his meditation in that mood. So here Prabhupada was ready to end his earthly Leela, and he expressed to the devotees, I want to go to Govardhan. And the devotees were in two camps. Some of them said, yes, whatever Prabhupada wants, it's going to make him feel better, then we should do whatever, he's our spiritual master, whatever he says to do, we should do it. And the other camp was, he's going, if we allow him to do it, then he's going to die. So do we want him to die? So it was very strong, two camps, because the Kaviraj, he said, it's impossible, the condition that his body is in, for him to take a bullock cart ride. It's just not possible. So they called Lokanath Swami. Yesterday was Lokanath Swami's Vyasa Puja. Today we celebrated it. We had a nice celebration today. And he asked Lokanath Swami to prepare the bullock cart. Prabhupada was determined to go to Govardhan. And he said, we'll just drink a little milk and I'll be happy, that's my desire. and I can leave my body there at Govardhan. So this was Prabhupada's last desire. Finally, Prabhupada, he succumbed to the prayers of his devotees. They so much didn't want Prabhupada to leave them. But of course, this was just 2 or 3 days before Prabhupada left the world that all of this Leela went on. So Prabhupada, instead of his going, they had a bullock cart parikrama through the streets of Vrindavan. They served out prasadam and had kirtan. And within 2 days, Prabhupada entered into samadhi. And then after Prabhupada's body was placed in samadhi, because it was Prabhupada's final desire to go to Govardhan, the devotees had a small murti of Prabhupada that Palika had gotten made. They took that murti of Prabhupada on the Govardhan parikrama, and they felt that Prabhupada was with them. They had fulfilled his last desire. But Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he noticed that all of the Goswamis, starting from the 6 Goswamis onwards, they all had residence in Vrindavan, in Govardhan. It was their aspiration. They wrote so many prayers and astakams about Govardhan. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj decided, I want to get a place for Prabhupada at Govardhan. So they were looking and they found, I'm sure all of you must have gone to the Govardhan ashram that we have there. You've all seen Govardhan ashram. So this used to belong to the Maharaj of Chhatarpur. And we know what happened after the independence. The land, the money, all the wealth of the Maharajas was taken by the government, and they became practically destitute, many of the Maharajas. So this Maharaj also, although he was a great devotee of Giriraj. It was built over 100 years ago, this palace. He built it in such a way, it's a perfect square, and each side is 108 feet, or 108 meters, 108 meters. And he built the roof in such a way that you just go up on the roof and you can have perfect darshan of Giriraj from the roof. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he felt that this was ideal to make an ashram there for Srila Prabhupada. It took them 3 years, and then they were finally able to get that ashram made. At the same time, because his GBC responsibilities were in Texas, he decided to take a Govardhan Shila, a big Govardhan Shila, to Houston for the devotees there. So normally when you take a Shila, which is non-different from Krishna, just as when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he visited Vrindavan and he went on parikrama of the Braj Mandal. He visited Govardhan. He refused to place his feet on Govardhan. So Gopalji, the deity, made a special leela that the Muslims were coming. So Gopal had to come down from his temple and be in a small village in hiding. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was able to get the darshan of Gopal at that time. He circumambulated Govardhan, and then he also chanted this sloka at that time. Also, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he was in Jagannath Puri, one day while he was bathing at the ocean, he saw a big sand dune named Chataka Parvat. And it reminded him of Govardhan. And he started running to Chataka Parvat. And he fell into ecstasy, into samadhi. And the devotees knew that the only way to get him back into consciousness was to chant kirtan very loudly. So while he was in samadhi, he had come here to Govardhan, and he had seen Krishna with the cows and the cowherd boys playing on his flute. and Radharani was there, and Radha and Krishna entered into a cave, and the gopis asked Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to help them pick flowers. So he was picking flowers when he heard this tumultuous sound, and he was called back by the devotees to Jagannath Puri. And when he came to consciousness, he said, "Why have you brought me back here? Why did you make such a big sound? I was seeing Radha and Krishna's Leela, I was picking flowers, and now you've brought me here again." So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was always in a mood of separation from Vrindavan and Radha and Krishna. And one sannyasi, Shankarananda Saraswati, he traveled. In those days, they could only travel by foot. He traveled to Jagannath Puri, and he brought for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu a Govardhan Shila and a string of gunja berries, a gunja mala. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu worshipped that Govardhan Shila for 3 years. When he cried, he would put them on his eyes, he would put them on his head, he would hold the Shila to his chest. And after 3 years, by that time, Raghunath Das Goswami had come to join him in Jagannath Puri. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, being very pleased with his degree of renunciation, gave him both the Govardhan Shila and the Gunjamala to worship. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj, understanding the value from Chaitanya Charitamrita of the worship of Govardhan Shila, he wanted to initiate that worship in the West. So he brought a huge Govardhan Shila to Houston, Texas. And normally when you take a Govardhan Shila, first it has to be given to you by a saintly sadhu, and you have to return to Govardhan the weight of that Shila in gold. But he never did that. He never gave any gold. So he took the Shila, they installed it at Houston, and then when he came back, he was thinking, well, I really committed grand larceny by taking the Shila and I didn't give anything back. And then he realized that Govardhan was laughing at him, and Govardhan was telling him, the amount that you're going to pay to have to renovate this temple that you got, this ashram, will be worth far more than the amount of gold that would have been you would have given to Govardhan. So yes, you're going to be paying it back that way. So then Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he was satisfied. He finally got a place for Srila Prabhupada to reside. His Vyasa-san is there, his Murti is there. Then he started to feel, because in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there are several Haridas mentioned. In the 47th chapter, Uddhav is mentioned as Haridas, because he was so close to Lord Krishna that when Lord Krishna wanted to send a message to the residents of Vrindavan, he sent Uddhava, and Uddhava was able to console them and pacify them. So he is also called Haridas. And then in the 75th chapter, when Yudhisthira Maharaj was performing the Rajasuya Yagya, all of the saints and sages, the kings and the leaders, they all came to see Yudhisthira Maharaj. First of all, because he was such a great devotee of the Lord. And second of all, because he was performing this whole Rajasuya sacrifice just to establish Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It was all his way of getting Krishna to come to Hastinapur to be with him. So he's also called Haridas, being such a great king and being such a great devotee of the Lord. So great that Krishna used to come and be his servant, be his messenger. He was his relative, and he was also, for him, the Supreme Lord. But amongst all the Haridasas, Narada Muni is also called Haridas. Radharani says that Govardhan is Haridas Varya. That means of all the devotees, this Govardhan Hill is the best. He's the best devotee. Now, how can we understand that? Because in a few chapters, in chapter 24 to 27, Krishna is going to tell the residents of Vrindavan that he is Govardhan Hill. And all the offerings he'll be accepting. So how at the same time, Govardhan can be Krishna, and Govardhan can also be Krishna's greatest devotee. So we have to look at the example of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was also Krishna, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was the greatest devotee of Krishna. That was why he appeared here, to show us how to worship Krishna. So Radharani, in the sloka before this sloka, where she's praising Govardhan as the greatest devotee, in sloka number 17, it's described that the Pulindi ladies, these are very low-class forest dweller women of the Sabara tribes. They're not even in the Varnashram system. They're below the Varnashram, below the Sudras, Yavanas, Chandalas. They have no caste whatsoever. I guess nowadays they would be called tribals. So these women, they would go into the forest of Vrindavan, all around Govardhan, and they would collect cow dung and wood, firewood. And Krishna, he would go into the forest also, and they would hear his flute playing, and they were equally as attached and attracted to Krishna as the gopis were. They had anurag, such attachment to Krishna. And one day they happened to see that there in the forest where they were collecting all of their things, they saw Krishna's footprints, but they had seen Krishna's footprints before, but these footprints were very special. They had kumkum on them. They didn't know where the kumkum came from. They knew they were Krishna's lotus feet, but they took that kumkum, and to satisfy their lusty desires for Krishna, they smeared that kumkum all over their faces and their bodies, and then they felt fully satisfied because that kumkum had touched Krishna's lotus feet. Now, when Radharani heard about the good fortune of these Pulindi women being topmost devotee, she was thinking that these women are so much more fortunate than we are. We don't get to go to Govardhan with Krishna. We don't get to see his pastimes there. We don't get to see his footprints. But these women, these tribal women, they're able to come in contact with Krishna. So she was wondering, how did they get this great fortune? So this is explained that when Ram appeared and he was wandering after his exile from Ayodhya, he was wandering in the jungles. There were tribal women there in the jungles, and they were also attracted to Lord Ram. And he told those women that at the end of Dwapara Yuga, you will take birth, and all of your desires will be satisfied at that time. So these are those same women who had taken birth at the time of Lord Ram, had now taken birth to take part in Krishna's pastimes. So Radharani was thinking that these women are so fortunate because they came in touch with the lotus feet of Krishna. They get to hear his flute playing. They get to see his pastimes. They get to take this kumkum and smear it on their bodies. So she realized that the real way to fulfill one's desire is to take shelter of the devotees of Krishna. So she was taking shelter of these women. And then she realized that even greater than these women, who has the greatest fortune, that is Govardhan. Because Govardhan, he does all types of service for the Supreme Lord. And here she's describing all the different types of service that Govardhan does for Krishna. But Govardhan, he has also learned that secret. The secret of pleasing Krishna is to please his servants and to please all of his devotees. So what Govardhan does is he doesn't only concentrate on pleasing Krishna. He tries to please the cows, the calves, the cowherd boys, and the gopis. And the way he does that, there are several ways that Radharani is mentioned in this sloka. First is by the paniya. Now, we know if we want to say water in Hindi, it's pani. In Sanskrit, there are many different ways to say it. There's toyam, there's jal, but here it's paniya. So paniya means something that's drunk. So Govardhan, he would, in his ecstasies, the dew that would come onto his body in the morning, that was just like his perspiration upon seeing Krishna. And the tears flowing from Govardhan's eyes, they took the form of waterfalls and streams, and all the water from those waterfalls and streams would flow into Kusum Sarovara and Radhakund and the other lakes and streams that run around Govardhan. And we have to remember at that time, Govardhan was much bigger than it is now. And if you want to know the history of how Govardhan became smaller, by the end of Kali Yuga, after Kali Yuga has gone through 10,000 years, Govardhan will disappear and Jamuna will also disappear. Because when the demigods and Lord Brahma went to Vishnu to ask him to help Mother Earth because of the demons that were overriding her, Vishnu himself took all the demigods and Lord Brahma to Goloka Vrindavan and explained to Krishna, it's time for you to appear. So Krishna decided to come, and it was the end of Dwapara Yuga. It was the 28th Yuga cycle. And in that day of Brahma, so Krishna was going to appear. And he wanted Radharani to come with him. And Radharani said, but where there's no Vrindavan, there's no Govardhan, and there's no Jamuna, I won't be happy. So Krishna arranged that his 84 crores of Braja and Govardhan and Jamuna would all descend with him. And Govardhan descended as the son of a great mountain named Dronachala on the Salmili Dvipa, which is just next to where our Bharatvarsha is. It's another island of the 7 islands, so of Jambudvip. So he appeared as a beautiful mountain, the son of Dronachala. And Pulastya Muni, he was traveling to the holy places, and he came to that place and saw beautiful Govardhan. And he was a resident of Kashi. So he went to Dronachala and he said, I want to take your son Govardhan to Kashi, because in Kashi we have the Ganga and we have Vishwanath himself living there to give liberation, but we don't have any mountains or hills there. And I want to perform my tapasya on this hill of Govardhan. And Dronachala, he was crying. He said, I can't give up my son, but I'm afraid you might curse me. So Govardhan himself offered that, yes, I will go under one condition, that when you carry me, if you put me down anywhere, I will stay in that place. So Pulastya Muni agreed to that. He took him on his right hand. At that time, he was 64 miles long 40 miles wide and 16 miles high. Very big mountain. And Pulasya Muni, with his mystic powers, was able to carry him. But as they were coming towards Kashi, they crossed Braja. And Govardhan, he wanted to stop there because he wanted to take part in Krishna's pastimes. So he became so heavy that Pulasya Muni had to put him down on the ground. And from that place, he refused to move. So Pulasya Muni cursed him that you've tricked me, and now every day you will reduce in size 1 sesame seed. So since that time, since Satya Yuga, Govardhan has become smaller and smaller and smaller, and that's why he's the size he is now. And in some places, he's even disappeared. So this Govardhan Shila, he satisfies Krishna, the cowherd boys, the cows, and the calves with paniya, with drinkables, with water, with different kinds of honey. There are 8 different kinds of honey according to Ayurveda. And that's because each type of bee produces a different type of honey. So they would also drink the honey. They would drink all types of fruit juices. There's a special fruit here in Vrindavan. I don't think you'll find it anywhere else, called pilu. They would drink the juice of the pilu, mango juice. And then the other way that he would please them was suyavasa. That's very soft grass. Now, we've all heard of dubgas or durva grass that you do puja with. Whenever you want to do any type of puja, there's always durva grass there. So they're very soft grasses that Govardhan would grow. And these were the hairs on his body. And these soft grasses would stand up in ecstasy, just like the devotees' hair stand in ecstasy. So these grasses were specifically to satisfy the cows, because the cows would be able to eat these soft grasses. It wouldn't hurt their mouths. And from this soft grass, they had 4 different qualities. It was fragrant, it was tasty, and it gave them a lot of nutrients so that their milk would become very healthy. And because of that, when the residents of Vrindavan drank the milk, they would also become healthy. So this was also his service, Govardhan's service to Krishna and the cows. And then Govardhan has caves. Now these caves are so special that when it's hot, the caves are cool inside. And when it's cold, the caves are warm inside. And when it's raining, the caves are dry. So Krishna, he would take shelter of these caves in all the different seasons. He would be there with his boyfriends, and he would also be there with the gopis, as in the case of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's vision. He also had kanda and mulai. That means bulbs and roots that the cowherd boys in Krishna would dig up. Some of them were sweet, and some of them were sour, and some of them were juicy. So they would snack with these things along with their lunches. So in this way, Govardhan, he was able to satisfy not only Krishna, but the secret was he was also trying to satisfy the devotees. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he takes us to the level that Govardhan is Haridasa Varyo, but all of these different qualities, he also saw in Srila Prabhupada. And as he lived at Govardhan, meditating on Govardhan, he compared that, for instance, the caves. Well, our temples are just like caves because we can take shelter there from all of the horrible influences of Kali Yuga. And the whole body of Govardhan, Krishna would walk all over the body of Govardhan, And Prabhupada, he told us that ISKCON is his body. So all of us, we can take shelter of ISKCON just like Krishna took shelter of Govardhan. And in that way, one by one, Tamal Krishna Maharaj was able to compare how Srila Prabhupada not only is Govardhan Haridasa Varya, but Srila Prabhupada is also Haridasa Varya. And we can take shelter of him and also learn from him, from Srila Prabhupada, how to please the Supreme Lord by serving the devotees. Because all of the tapasya that Srila Prabhupada underwent to satisfy his spiritual master, we have to look and see all that Govardhan went through just to satisfy Krishna. When Krishna wanted to protect the inhabitants of Vrindavan, he lifted Govardhan up and all the inhabitants went under Govardhan. So we might ask, how is it possible? Because Govardhan was just one part of Braj. How can all the inhabitants fit under one part of Braj? So it's explained that due to the ecstasy of Krishna touching with his little finger Govardhan, Govardhan expanded in ecstasy so that everyone could fit under him. They were safe, but on top, Govardhan had to take all of the batterings of the lightning and the hail and the rain and the thunder clouds. All of that he was doing just to protect Krishna and his devotees. So he had to undergo a lot of austerities. So Giriraj Swami, he was speaking about this sloka, and he was explaining that Govardhan never complained about anything. Everything that he was doing was being done in jubilation. And there's a word in this sloka called pramoda. Pramoda means he was jubilant, even though he had to undergo so much tapasya, he was happy doing it. And he very respectfully offered all these services to Krishna and his devotees. So we have to look at our own devotional service and we have to think, are we jubilant when we're doing our devotional service, both to the Lord and to the devotees? If we're thinking, I had to do all this service and I missed prasadam and I'm so hungry, I'm miserable. I had to do all this extra service and I didn't get to sleep enough. I'm so tired. All I think about is going to sleep. I'm not jubilant. I'm miserable. I just want to go to sleep and I want to have something to eat. So that isn't the mood of a jubilant devotee, because we have to take the example of the great devotees like Govardhan, who are jubilant no matter what type of austerities they're performing for the Lord and for his devotees. And we have to take the example also of Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada explained, he said to one of his friends once, that since 1965, that was when Prabhupada had his 2 heart attacks, I was in bad health the whole time since then, since the time that he left the world, because he had no time to ever recover. He was constantly traveling and traveling. And one time a devotee asked Prabhupada, we just got this quote recently in our book distribution. We have a little group here, all the devotees who distribute books. They asked Prabhupada, how are you able to travel so much all over the world, going again and again to visit all the temples? And Prabhupada explained that I am traveling like this just so that you don't have to travel through the 8,400,000 species of life anymore. So I don't know how many of you have ever had to travel. Traveling is very difficult on the body. Some devotees just can't travel anymore. They have heart palpitations now, and for years they haven't been able to travel anymore. But Prabhupada, we learned this because Srudakirti has been living here now, and Srudakirti traveled with him for just 2 years. Prabhupada was traveling for 11 years. So in those 2 years, he was able to see how Prabhupada was able to do it. In case any of us become Parivrajakacharyas, here's the secret how to do it. That each place you arrive at, whatever time it is, because Prabhupada's schedule was very fixed, just like a clock. You knew what he was doing every single moment of the day because his schedule was so strict. So whatever time it was that he arrived, let's say he arrived at 3 o'clock in the morning at a temple, it would be 3 o'clock in the morning for him. There would be no jet lag. There would be, oh, I left when it was 6 o'clock in the evening. I didn't get any sleep I have to go. No, for him, it was 3 o'clock in the morning. It was time to get up. It was time to bathe. It was time to do his Gayatri and to go on his morning walk. If he arrived at 11 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, he had his other duties. He would sleep for 2 hours, then he would get up at 1 o'clock in the morning and start his translation at 1 o'clock until 4 o'clock. So this was the way Prabhupada was able to travel for 11 years, just so that we wouldn't have to travel through all the species of life. He was just going to enthuse his devotees to make sure that all the principles were being followed, that the temple, the deities were being nicely taken care of. And the funny thing that he noticed that whenever he went to a temple, it always smelled like fresh paint. And that's because right before Prabhupada arrived, they would get everything ready for him. Who knows what the temple looked like before that? So yes, had Prabhupada not traveled like this, he gave a very strong lecture here one year. He said there's, I forget the Sanskrit name. He said that if we don't understand that this is Krishna standing here before us, and we think that this is just a murti, some stone, and we can offer him any type of rubbish, flowers, any type of rubbish, foodstuffs, because he had noticed one morning, the temple had just opened here, that the flowers were brown. And he got very upset that why are you offering flowers that aren't fresh to the deities? So instead of vigraha, it'll become, I forget the sense, something like agraha. It'll just become a burden. That this old man has given us this burden. We have to offer all these things to a piece of stone. Let's just spend all the money on our own eating and forget about all this deity worship. So he said, that's what it will decline to. If you treat Krishna like a stone, then he will respond like a stone to you. He'll never speak to you and you'll never have any relationship with him. So this is a reciprocal relationship. For instance, if we just go to Govardhan, and this happens a lot, people, they come to Govardhan and they do parikrama because they want something from Govardhan, because Govardhan can fulfill all desires of a devotee, just like a kalpavriksha. Whatever devotee desires in Krishna's service, kalpavriksha can fulfill. So Rupa Goswami, he gave us the way that we should present our desires to Govardhan, because people come to Govardhan, they want to get a good pass in their examination, they want to get a good wife, they want to get a good husband, they want to do well in this business, and they'll do the parikrama, and they'll even do dandavat parikrama just to get what they want from Govardhan, because he's so merciful. But no, Rupa Goswami, he prays in his Govardhan Astakam. He wrote 2 Govardhan Astakams. And at the end of each stanza, he said, "Oh Govardhan, please satisfy my desire." But he doesn't tell us what his desire is until the 9th sloka. In the 9th sloka, he reveals what his desire is. His desire is that anyone who reads about the glories of Govardhan and his service to Krishna, when they understand the glories of Govardhan, that Govardhan, you please bless this person with pure love for Krishna. So that was his desire, nothing for himself. This is the pinnacle of the compassion of a devotee. They don't ask anything from the Lord for themselves. His desire was that anyone who reads these slokas about the glories of Govardhan, you please bless them with pure love for your Krishna. So with that, we can understand, just like Srila Prabhupada, he had no personal desires to fulfill whatsoever. He sacrificed his whole life to fulfill the orders of his spiritual master. And we, as disciples, we each have a guru. We've each taken our vows. We've each received the same mantras. But what we do with that relationship with ourself and our guru, that's in our hands. How seriously we want to take that relationship to carry out the orders of the spiritual master. Just as if we're worshiping the Lord in the temple, the arch of Vigraha, however we see the deity, that is how he will respond to us. So if we approach Krishna understanding that this is Krishna standing before me, I have to feed him, I have to dress him, I have to bathe him, I have to sing for him and please him, then he will reciprocate like that with us. And if we see him as a burden, oh no, you mean it's time for me to do arti again? I'm so tired of doing arti. Then he will reciprocate like that. He will always remain a stone for us. So our devotional service is in our hands. If we take the instructions of our spiritual master very seriously, then we will get that benediction of love of Krishna that he's offering to all of his disciples. And if we see the deity as Krishna standing before us, then he will reciprocate with us just like that. And when we come to Govardhan, if we're doing Govardhan Parikrama, and we see the beautiful peaks of the mountains and the beautiful grasses and the trees, and we understand that everything there that Govardhan has exhibited is purely for the pleasure of Krishna and his devotees. So we as devotees, we can take the dust of Govardhan. We shouldn't take shilas from Govardhan. Prabhupada did not permit that. But because Govardhan is shrinking, we don't want to expedite that. In fact, my service is to convince devotees to bring their Govardhan shilas back to Govardhan. I brought at least 10 shilas back that I collected from devotees saying, just explaining to them, no, you bring the Govardhan, if you go to the Govardhan ashram, you'll see at the front garden a huge stack of Govardhan shilas that have all been returned. And it's becoming a Govardhan itself. It's getting so big now. Because the devotees, they foolishly take Govardhan, then they realize that they can't worship him properly. And the best thing to do then is to bring Govardhan back so that he can be worshipped. Very simple worship. Lord Chaitanya told Raghunath Das Goswami, you simply bathe with water and offer 8 tulsi manjaris. And that was the worship that he performed. So it doesn't take much to worship Govardhan Shila, but you have to be very strict in your sadhana and following all the regulative principles very, very carefully. So it's not recommended that we take Govardhan Shila. Better you meditate on all the glories of Govardhan. And just as Srimati Radharani, she now is going to make a plan to come to Govardhan, to bathe in Manasa Ganga, and to worship Haridev for the purpose of possibly getting darshan of Sri Krishna. And she's taking shelter of Haridas Varyo in this way, because she knows that if she takes shelter of Govardhan, she might be able to get the mercy of Krishna and get his darshan. Okay, so my thoughts are still, because the class is tomorrow, I was just trying to combine the two things together of Srila Prabhupada and the glories of Govardhan. If anyone has any questions, we have a few minutes.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so very much, Mataji. We thought of something else and somehow the class became Govardhan and Prabhupada together. So, and this shloka also is yes, special. And I remember how Guru Maharaj used to sing the Tav Katha Amritam, and that Bhurida Bhurida used to connect with Prabhupada. And today you have made, Mataji, that whenever we'll hear this word Haridas Varya, so we'll also think of Prabhupada, that
Yes.
connection has been made,
Right.
So,
Your Guru Maharaj used to sing the Gopi Geet, and this is the Venu Geet.
Yes, Mataji. So
it's 20 slokas.
Yes, Mataji. So in there, the Bhurida, he connected with Prabhupada, most munificent.
Yes,
and
exactly.
in this one, you connected this one. And
Right.
it is very nice, Mataji. It is so nice.
Okay.
So let me ask devotees if they have any question. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So do you have any questions from Mataji from what we have heard today? Then you can raise your hand or unmute and ask. They are all in ecstasy like Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Mataji. They absorbing your words, and it is so nice, Mataji, how you connected, and also you connected how Tamal Krish Maharaj said the caves are like our temples, and Govardhan is like ISKCON's body, or ISKCON is Prabhupada's body. And yes, Mataji, it is very wonderful to see these connections and to hear from you.
Thank you.
Yes, Mataji.
Okay, so thank you very much. Oh, let's see, Shivani wrote something.
Yes, Mataji. She's saying wonderful session. Thank you so much, Mataji, for so lovingly teaching us about the glories of Govardhan being the greatest devotee. Oh, here, there's a question, Mataji. Yes, Meenakshi Radha Mataji, can unmute.
Hare Krishna, Dharma Pranam.
Yes, Mataji.
Thank you so much, Mataji. It's a wonderful session. It's so nice to hear about again the glories of such a Bhagavad and with the comparison of a Govardhan. So, Mataji, we just when we heard from our devotees about Srila Prabhupada, we really get so much of connection. We really get appreciation. But unfortunately, our mind is so flickering with the time, it goes here and there also. So how do we make it stable in the mind, understanding the position of Srila Prabhupada, glorification of Prabhupada, and being connected more and more to the Srila Prabhupada?
Well, the reason that Srila Prabhupada wrote all of these books is so that you can be connected with Krishna. We just received another conversation that Prabhupada had with the devotees in Germany. And Prabhupada asked them, these were all book distribution devotees. And Prabhupada said, what is the most important thing in Krishna consciousness? And the book distribution devotee said, book distribution. And Prabhupada said, no. And then they were confused because they thought the book distribution was the most important thing. Someone else said chanting, Prabhupada said no. Then he explained that the most important thing is that you read my books, because Prabhupada has put everything into his books. And just to distribute his books is not enough. These books he wrote for us. And if you carefully, honestly, you should be reading at least 2 hours a day if you really want to make your mind fixed. And you should read the books over and over and over again, because as you read and as you mature in your Krishna consciousness, you will discover things that you might have read 5 times before, and it'll be completely new to you. So these books, one time Prabhupada told me, my books are your deities. They are Shabdar Brahman. They are worshipable sound vibrations. So you should worship my books. So if you find that your mind is flickering, and if you want to have a relationship with Prabhupada, he said that he put his personal ecstasies into his books. So if you really are serious about understanding Prabhupada, then read his books. And not just the books, there's the conversations, there's his diaries, there's his morning walks. So much is available now. And you can learn so much about Prabhupada and about his teachings. And of course, everything is directed to developing your relationship with Krishna. Prabhupada doesn't say worship me. He says worship Krishna. So automatically, simultaneously, as you become more attached to reading Prabhupada's books, you'll become more attached to Krishna too. Okay?
Thank you so much, Mataji.
Anything else?
Just pray for us that whatever you said, we'll be able to implement and we get more attached to the books of Srila Prabhupada, reading of books of Srila Prabhupada.
Do you have all of Prabhupada's books?
Yes, Mataji.
Wonderful. Are you reading regularly? Do you have time?
I'm trying to read Srimad Bhagavatam. We have one group, we are trying to read at least half an hour daily.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Just pray for
Very
us, Mataji. It's prayers are also necessary that we keep on this motivation to read the Srila Prabhupada books basically, and have more and more attachment to Prabhupada books basically.
We used to have 5 classes a day. We would have a class in Ishopanishad, in Nectar Devotion, in Krishna book, in Srimad Bhagavatam, and in teachings of Lord Chaitanya. It would be like a feast every day. So a half an hour a day, that's wonderful. But that means you have 23.5 hours of the rest of the day that you're not in touch with Prabhupada. So try to increase if you can.
Sure, Mataji. Sure, definitely. I'll try to increase.
Hare Krishna. One more question, Mataji. Can we ask? One more Mataji raise the hand.
Of course.
Yes. Mohini Vishnupriya Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji Dandavat Pranam. Actually, I am her daughter, Shivali. So actually, Mataji, I am very blessed and grateful that I attended today's lecture by her phone. I want to say that my main aim is to become a preacher, and I want to spread Krishna consciousness more and more around the world where I go, because it's Srila Prabhupada's dream. So can you guide me some point, and you can give me some points so that I can be good as much I can in this path of Krishna consciousness of becoming a preacher?
As a doctor?
No, I just want to spread Krishna consciousness.
You want to spread Krishna consciousness?
Yeah,
because it's behind you. Very
because
nice.
it's the dream of Srila Prabhupada. So I am just trying.
Yes.
I started reading, learning shlokas of Bhagavad Gita, and completed some course. I even enrolled in Bhakti Shastri course. So I am doing more and more. So I want some points from you, and you can guide me to do more and more for Srila Prabhupada.
Well, preaching is the essence. Purity is the force. Preaching is the essence. Utility is the principle. So as you fill yourself up, same time you should be looking for ways to share your knowledge. So whatever you learn, find some resource, some vehicle by which you can speak to other people. I don't know what your temple situation is in Gurgaon. I know things might not be back to normal since the lockdown or whatever, but somehow or other, all of this wonderful knowledge that you're getting, you figure out with your fertile brain how you can share this knowledge with other people. If it's online, or if it's one-on-one, or if you can try to do book distribution, any way you can, whatever you have learned, you try to share with others. And that you're going to have to figure out according to your circumstance in life. If you want, we can talk about it. You can come to Vrindavan, we can discuss strategies, what what you can do, but I don't know what your situation is in life, so I can't give you a quick answer.
Actually, I have started in alternate days. I used to spread Krishna consciousness by telling stories to the students online and to
Wonderful.
my friends also. And they have started chanting, reading Srila Prabhupada book.
Oh,
And they ask
fantastic.
questions from me as well. So
Wonderful.
it's a small step I have taken, and I put myself at best so that I can answer them as much as possible for me.
Fantastic. That's wonderful. So you're doing exactly that.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
But
So
sometimes I am confused that will I be able to learn all the Sanskrit shlokas? Will I be able to remember them when I am preaching?
no, you don't.
So I'm very confused.
I hardly know any slokas, but whatever I realize, that's what I talk about. The things that inspire me are the things that I talk about. Even, I mean, they have me give classes almost every day, and I hardly know any slokas at all. But when I study, some things really hit my heart that I can remember, that make an impression on me in my life. And that's what I talk about. I don't try to just memorize slokas, because one time a devotee came to Prabhupada and he had memorized the whole Bhagavad Gita. So he was chanting the whole Bhagavad Gita. And then when he was finished, the temple president had brought him here to see Prabhupada. So afterwards, Prabhupada just looked at the temple president and said to him, make sure he's doing something practical. So just memorizing slokas is not going to touch the heart of people, okay? But what you've realized and what you've put into practical application in your life, that's what you can share with others, okay?
Yeah, thank you, Mataji. I wish I can meet you whenever I come to Vrindavan.
Yes, please do, okay?
Okay,
You
Hare
can get
Krishna, Mataji.
my number from Giri Raj, okay? Hare Krishna. Who's your Guru Maharaj?
Actually, I haven't taken shelter yet, but I am planning to take shelter from His Holiness Jai Pataka Swami Maharaj.
Wonderful, very nice. Okay, thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. And one Vimla Tulsi Mataji, she has also written that Mataji, I can read, but I can't memorize. Sorry, what to do. So
I can't
think-
memorize either. I'm terrible at memorizing.
yes,
But
Mataji.
realization is more important than memorizing. You know, Prabhupada, he gives an example that the parrot can memorize and speak, but when a cat comes, it goes ka 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 ka. So it's not enough just to memorize. You have to, it has to go into your heart, and you have to realize what you're reading. All right? So don't feel badly if you can't memorize it. We have Kali Yuga brains. Manda sumanda mateo. It's very unfortunate and slow-brained.
Yes, Mataji. And I also remember Mataji past time when I think one disciple went to Prabhupada and he said, Prabhupada, they are saying, I can't memorize the shloka. I don't do this. And Prabhupada said, well, they sound like my god brothers. You know,
They sound like my godbrothers means?
meaning because the god brothers are also very scholarly, Mataji. Prabhupada's god brothers were also scholarly. So there was so much pressure on learning, you know, like that. So he said they sound like my god brothers, you know, because they were so much
Yes,
pressure.
Prabhupada knew so many slokas. Oh my goodness. Half of his lectures were Sanskrit, actually, if you listen to them. Prabhupada was brilliant.
Brilliant.
But he started, you know, he was born in a Vaishnava family. His father trained him from childhood. So we didn't have that good fortune that Prabhupada had. What was our background? So we're starting late in life. We have to be kind. Okay, so I'm going to close now. Is that all right?
Yes. Thank you so much, Mataji. So all of us, we are most thankful to Mataji for giving us online association. And we heartily thank Mataji by loudly chanting, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram, 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 Hare Hare. Grace Daivi Shakti Mataji ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. Thank you so
Hare
very much.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Mataji,
Krishna,
Dandavat Pranam.
Mataji. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.